Hey everybody, welcome to Ellis Mowers. I appreciate y'all watching the channel as always. So we've got a, you've seen this on the channel already. Let me tell you the story of why it is back. This is a John Deere LX279 riding mower, 48-inch cut, 17 horsepower V-twin liquid cooled Kawasaki. Fixed it, thought I had everything buttoned up, sold it. Guy took it home and I don't know if you remember, I had a fluke thing at the very end of the second video to where it would, one time it just quit on me back here in the backyard. And then I cut the rest of the grass with it. I thought I had ran it out of gas. I think something more is going on with it, because when I tested it, it was only in the 50s outside. And now that it's gotten in the 70s and 80s, this thing will run like about 10 minutes, or if that. And then it just shuts off. What I have determined so far is it is a fuel supply issue. I believe what is happening is, I'll show you here in just a second, but I believe it's vapor locking, and I'll show you why I think it's vapor locking and what I did to prove that it's a fuel supply issue here. Also, I want to right some wrongs here. Justin Mater called me out on the other two videos to where he told me that I have to be sitting on the seat with the parking brake disengaged in order for the PTO switch to work here for this this particular model. I filmed those two videos. I was going to fix it. However, that day was the day that I got the inquiry about the mower, and I wanted to sell it the way that it was because it worked. Now that I've got it back, I don't have it listed for sale and I need to fix this problem. We are going to attempt to get the PTO to work in the correct manner. So, we will go through that process as well. So Justin, thank you for the question and for telling me what I was doing wrong. I am going to see if this switch will cooperate, and I am going to right that wrong. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. Remember, if you have any questions about this video, feel free to reach out to me, Ellis at ellismowers.com, or at ellismowers09 on Instagram and Facebook. I also, you'll see a link in the description below, have a partnership with HiPA. If you see any parts on there that you need for any lawn mower that you have, or chainsaw, or anything, you can click that link below and buy it using that link, and I get a little bit of commission from that, so that would help me out as well. Thank you again. Let's go ahead and get started on this John Deere. Alright, we've done two parts on this thing. Again, like I said, it was running and cutting fine. I got a vapor locking issue that I need to get fixed, and I'm going to try and fix it once and for all. It depends on how deep I need to go as to how long this thing's going to be. First thing, theory that I've got here. So, I think I had a fuel pump issue first off, and I think the fuel pump issue stemmed from this. So what I think is happening is this exhaust pipe, this muffler's been rattling, and I guess it has rattled itself loose from the actual exhaust pipes themselves. And so what is happening is a lot of this hot muffler gas is getting up. There is a shroud that goes here that I've already taken off around this shroud, and what has happened is it's getting heat up in here, and I think it's getting heat up into this fuel pump right here, because as you can see, I've replaced the line from the pump to the tank because it was cracking. This line right here, it looks to be in very good condition. It is. I know that it works because when it's cold, it pumps gas great. When it's hot is when it stops. So I think what's happening is this exhaust gas is getting up into this fuel pump, and the heat from it is drying out the diaphragm because it stops pumping gas. Because my fuel filter gets empty over there and all that stuff. So it just, like I said, stops pumping gas. If you let it sit for about 15-20 minutes, start it back up, it'll run just fine. So that's where I think I'm having the issue here. So what I'm going to do is take the welder. I'm going to try and do my best to weld up both sides of this to where it's no holes anymore, to where it's not just spewing 700-degree gas or exhaust gases out right onto my fuel pump here, because I think this deflector shield kind of deflects it back here, and so I think it's just, I think the heat's getting to it. So that's what we're gonna do. And we're also I'm gonna put a brand new fuel pump on it, because this one's the original one, pushing 20 years old. It is a mechanical fuel pump. However, there are some there's got to be some diaphragms and stuff inside here. These are kind of sealed units, so I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna break this bad boy open and see what happens as well, in addition to fixing the or at least attempting to fix the PTO. Let's go ahead and get going. I'm going to go ahead and weld this off camera. I am not a master welder. Y'all do not need to take my welding skills. So I'll weld this exhaust, and then we'll go about changing this fuel pump. Alright guys, so don't judge. Like I said, I am not a master welder. Do not judge me for my welding abilities or inabilities. But I think we've accomplished the goal. We have basically sealed up this these cracks here on both sides for the most part. There's probably still going to be a little bit of a leak, but it's not going to be bulging out like it was. So that should remedy the issue with the exhaust. It may not look pretty, but it's going to be covered up. And as long as it's functional, then I guess that's all that matters. So next we're going to do the fuel pump. I'm going to take this line off and this line off, slide them off, and it's literally two 12mm bolts here that hold it in, and there's a spacer. I have made the mistake. I have already tried doing this once. I have made the mistake of not putting the spacer back in, and I messed up a fuel pump. So luckily they were only like $13, $14, so it didn't hurt the wallet that bad. But I was still a little bit upset. Let me grab the tools I need. We'll take this thing off. Alright guys, I've got a bunch of junk in the way. I don't know how to really show you what I'm doing, but we're going to take off the fuel line. This is the one that's going from the fuel pump over to the fuel filter and back to the tank. That's the one that goes on the top here. I've taken these off many a time, so it should be fairly easy. As you can see, some of the fuel's coming out. As far as I know, the fuel is good. I don't see a blockage in the tank. It wouldn't be, if it was a blockage in the tank, I don't think it would be as consistent as it is when it comes to failing. So I might have to do a secondary. I know y'all can't really see this, but I'm going to do my best to describe what I'm doing. There we go. So we got the fuel pump off. Now we're going to take a couple of 12mm and just loosen it. I disconnected the wire to the anti-backfire solenoid too. I actually cut the backfire solenoid just because I wanted to eliminate any and all possibilities before going this route. As you can see, there is some fuel in it. Probably because it did pump some fuel in there, but what it wouldn't do is it wouldn't pump it out. However, so here's this block that I was telling y'all about that you've got to be wary of and remember to put back on. So we'll set that aside for a second. I tried to remedy myself and fix myself on one of these, but you can see there's a little bit of damage on this one just because I tried to fix it. But you can see, I mean, it pumps. Like I said, when it seems like the engine gets hot, it quits. And this still moves down here. This rod. So I know that the mechanical portion of it is still working, but the actual like pumping action quits. Something gets hot, and I'm thinking it's that diaphragm for the fuel pump. Let me grab a new fuel pump. We'll put it on. It's really easy. I'll show you how it goes on, and then I'll put it on and pop all this mess back on, and I'll pop the exhaust shield back on. This thing's probably going to run quieter too, because this thing did have pretty loud exhaust. So we should be knocking out a bunch of birds here with one stone, so to speak. Let me grab those fuel pumps. All right, y'all, so before I do this, I wanted to show you the difference, because you can feel it in the pump, how different it is pumping wise. Look at how easy this one is for me to push in. As you can see, it's pumping good. I think you can see it. Fairly easy. This new one, I don't know if it's just because it's cheap or if it's because this is the way it's supposed to be, like, takes a lot more effort to pump. Now, like I said, I don't know if that's the way that it is supposed to be, or if that's, I don't know, or if that's just cheap China for you. I need to get rid of this gasket. This is an old gasket right here. Let's see if it'll pull off for me right here on camera. Might have to. This fuel pump does come with new gaskets. And it wasn't this. It wasn't because I was getting an air leak, because it's a mechanical fuel pump. So if it's going to air leak, it's going to air leak on the inside. I'm going to get this gasket situated, and then I got a better angle for y'all to get down there to view what I'm doing here. All right, guys, that looks like a better angle for y'all. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put this fuel pump on. So you can see I've already got one gasket back there that is ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna put the other one on here on this side of the fuel pump. I don't know if you can see that very well, but then we're also gonna put this this block on. The block goes on the bottom down here of the big part of the block, or the spacer, goes on the bottom. And now I don't think it matters what side. Yeah, it doesn't. It looks like it can go either way in terms of like flipping it around, as long as this is on the bottom here. Hopefully y'all can see that. Let's see if I can get in here without knocking you over. The hard part here is just getting the sandwich in. Once you get the sandwich in, you're good to go. I will say this much: if you feel like there's something wrong and it's just not going in like as easy as it should, you probably forgot that spacer. And you're probably seeing my hands right now too. Let's see what I can do to remedy that. Okay, we got one side on. Just need to get them started and I can finish them off with an impact. Just move away for a second. That should be all we need to do there. Let's connect the line from the fuel pump, or from the what is that? Fuel tank. And I'm just curious, if I turn the key, if this thing will pump out. If it does, then we're in good shape. If not, then I think I'm just going to give up. Let's see what we got. starter issues. Give me just a second here. Let me hop on the seat just to make sure that it's not that. Shouldn't be. There we go. That's what we want to see, and I think I got some of that in y'all's face there. So that is exactly what we want to see. We'll go ahead and connect this line. Boom. We'll get this thing primed. Actually, while we are here, I'll let it run for maybe a minute or a few seconds here, just to see how it runs. I wonder if this is going to cure the issue that I was having with I was having an issue with it kind of running rough when you first started it. Now it's going to be a bear to get this clip back on. Come on, seriously? Thing didn't want to go back on. Oh. There we go. Okay. So I might run it for a hot sec here. See how it runs. See if it's any quieter too. Just get all the tools straight out when you do something like this. Alright, number one, it is running quieter. Still kind of surges a little bit. But yeah, you can see me feel it. Obviously I'm not going to grab the exhaust pipe. My poor Mrs. Ellis Mowers unfortunately grabbed a hot pan that just came out of the stove a couple days ago, and I don't want to replicate that with a hot muffler, so I've been there though. You just could see it right there. Anyways, I'm gonna get this shroud back on. Let me show you what that shroud looks like, because I took it off before we even started the video. So it looks like this, like that, and what we're gonna do, slide it back on. I don't know if you can see it, but you can kind of see where the shroud ends. It ends right where this fuel pump is. So what's probably happening is the fuel pump is most likely what it was doing is, I think the exhaust gases were funneling up. The ones that were escaping out the top of the muffler were funneling up through this shroud and over to the fuel pump, and I think it was drying it out. That's my theory. Now, we're really going to put this to the test whenever I go put it out and mow grass with it. And hopefully that will be the true test. Now, one thing I am going to try to do before I go out to cut grass is see if I can get that switch working for the safety, so that I don't have the headlight switch engaged in the blades. And if I can do that, then that'd be awesome. And if what I just did fixes this fuel supply issue, that would also be awesome. Let me tighten this down. I'm going to jack the mower up and get under there and see if I can get some wiring situated, and I'll be right back. Alright, so here's what we've done. I have reconnected the original PTO wire. Light colors, as you can see, goes up to the PTO switch. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you that there are 0 ohms at the plug. I know that the ground is good because the PTO switch worked when we had the headlight switch hooked up to it. Now let's test it here. Oops, that's bolts. Let's go to the horseshoes. And you can see we have 0 ohms between the PTO switch and the plug. That's exactly what we want. Now, let me take this, let me jack this back down, plug the PTO switch back in. We need to zip tie it right there. Actually, it'll be fine for testing this. We'll do this hot take right here. Actually, let me get some of this junk up so I can get this out a little bit better. I'll go ahead and even put the hood on it for us. Why not? All right, Justin Mater, this one is for you. I hope you are correct. I appreciate the feedback. So let's let me get it out of here, and park and brake off on the seat for the PTO to work. Let's see if that holds true. Let's do it. Let's do it. switch, and I don't know what it is. Everything's hooked up like it should be. It's still nothing. So I'm gonna just go ahead and revert back. Like I said, on the seat, park and brake off, pull the switch, still doesn't work. So it could be a bad PTO switch, but I know one thing that does work, and that's the headlight switch. So I'm gonna revert that back. I wanted to try it. I wanted it to be on camera to show proof that there's something beyond just the basics here when it comes to that switch. Anyways, let me revert that back. I'm going to test mow this, and I'm going to see if this issue comes back. I hope it doesn't, but I can hear it surging just a little bit, so I think I'm going to check the fuel filter, and we'll see what we end up with. Alright guys, I am having the same issue. I thought I was free and clear, but I am not. It's still doing the same thing. It will actually pump gas now whenever it gets hot. However, it pumps it, and I think it gets up here somewhere, and it vapor locks. It's coming out as a gas at this line here. So here's my thought process, and I'm gonna do my best to see if I can get this right. They make this fuel line shield. I'm gonna buy some of that and see if I can get this fuel line shielded from about right here all the way to the fuel pump, and then out from the fuel pump into the carburetor. Hopefully that's going to work. If not, I've got to figure out somehow, some way to get this fuel bowl insulated. I'm so close to this thing, I just want to get it at this point. So it's another 15 bucks or so, but why not try it and see what happens, really. Alright guys, let me show you what I have done with this. So what I have done is I went to auto parts store. A guy seemed knowledgeable, and I was going to get some vapor sleeve, I guess. And he suggested me get this. This is like Design Engineering titanium plug wire and hose protection. Withstands up to 2,500 degrees of radiant heat. I think it's mostly for plug wires, but I think you can use it for hoses. It says radiator hoses, heater hoses, and other large hoses. This isn't particularly a large hose, but it fit right into this fuel line. And what it did is, you see a bunch of electrical tape right around the fuel lines, because this right here will not allow for the well, it's braided and it tries to fray at the end, so I'll put some electrical tape down through here. I have this braided fuel line inside of it here, and it's attached everywhere. And I did it for the line for the carburetor, from the carburetor to the fuel pump, or fuel pump to the carburetor, either way. And then I did it all the way from about right here on the line coming from the fuel filter and the gas tank. So it got all of this protected. We're going to see if that keeps the vapor lock out. The only wild card I'm thinking of, if this works, if this portion works and I'm still having a vapor lock issue, is if the fuel and the fuel pump's actually getting too hot. Because I think it does have like a little area where it keeps some fuel here in it, and I think that that may be evaporating a little bit too. But I think what was going on is this fuel line, I don't know if it needs to be up a little bit higher, but this fuel line, I believe, was evaporating gas before it got into the fuel pump once it got hot enough, and then it wouldn't only be pumping vapors out into the carburetor. So guys, I'm gonna give this thing a shot. I need to mow my whole yard with this in order for me to feel like this is gonna be adequate for me to sell. Lucky for me, it is probably the warmest day we've had in a while. Warmest day this season, probably in the, I don't know, low 80s. A little bit of humidity, so we get a little bit of heat in this, and we'll see what we can do. I hope it works, because I'm ready to be done with this thing. Y'all have seen 3 parts of this, and I'm just as ready to be done with it as y'all are probably ready to finish watching this video. Alright, so we continue trying to figure this out. This didn't work worth the flip, so you would think it would, but I guess it just withstands heat. It's heat resistant. It doesn't block heat. So what I have done is I have extended the fuel line. This is just a temporary setup with a fuel filter on it, just so that I didn't have to cut the original line. But what I'm going to do, see if it runs like this. I figured, so I got to looking, and it was vapor locking before it even got to the fuel pump. Because when you look at it, the way that it's routed, you have to route the fuel line, or the fuel line was routed around the back of the engine, around the side here, and this is all pretty hot. So what I'm going to do is put it on top here, and what that does is actually allow it sucks air temperature into this radiator, which hopefully will keep it cooler. I've got it routed around, well, I wanted to route it around the side here, which I think I can still manage that. Around the side of the shroud, down into the fuel pump here. And then the wild card obviously is, can I get enough, is it enough to get the gas from the fuel pump through the fuel pump, because this thing gets hot right here, out this hose into the carburetor without vapor locking. That's the thing. And if not, then we might have to, Rick Broerman suggested a pulse fuel pump. Told me to relocate the line, and it's possible that I could do that. It's just a matter of, I would have to find a pulse, and I think I can get it from the valve cover. So we'll see. Let's see. Let me crank this, see if I can crank this thing up here and see if it'll run. It ran longer this time than it did last time, so I don't, like I said, I don't know if this will cure the vapor lock. It'd be nice to know where the vapor lock is. Might put the hood on and just ride it around again. Because what it does is it's pulling this cool air here, instead of all the hot air coming around each side. So the only hot area, there's nothing really that I can do to avoid this. It's right here. bunch of wind there, but we'll see. I'll test it out. Alright guys, we're getting serious now. I cannot figure it out fully. And what I was seeing, I was letting it run, and I was continually seeing this fill up and then get air bubbles in it and start slowly leaking out. Fill up, get air bubbles in it and start slowly leaking out. And so I took the back fender off, and here's what we got. A bunch of junk in here. I've already taken some of this junk off of the fuel lines, but I could totally see where this could be an issue, and if it's not, I would actually be surprised. And you can see it goes, I mean, it's just like, this stuff is so crusted on there that it's stuck to it, really. And so we've got all types of just grass junk up in here that's just built up over the years, and just needs to be scraped off, really. That's probably why this wasn't working very well, because well, this gear's kind of been stripped a little bit. But you've got a spring here, and I don't know the situation that the pickup tube is here. The pickup tube's actually in decent shape. It is, believe it or not. The tank looks good, but I'm wondering if, don't try this at home, if that gas tank is good. I don't know if it just needs a new grommet there or something. I don't know if that's what's sucking air. I don't think that would cause anything to be sucking air. But I'm going to take off the fuel line at the fuel filter, and I'm going to take it off right here at the grommet for the pickup. The tank, if I just looked inside the tank, it actually looks very encouraging when it comes to how little debris and stuff is in there, so that's a good sign. I might just kind of let that sit. Like I said, I don't think that would cause an issue. But I'm going to take this fuel line off, the fuel line at the fuel filter. We're going to see if I can even blow it out and blow through it very well. And we're definitely going to replace it. Definitely going to replace it. So let me get to that, and I will get back with y'all. It's so close, because I think I may have gotten vapor lock sorted out. I originally had it, tried to route the line over this, and then it gets to the fuel pump, and the fuel pump kind of gets hot, but why would the fuel pump stop pumping? And it's the same with both of these fuel pumps I put on. The old one, that was the OEM, and the new one. Why would they all of a sudden just both stop pumping and then start back again? It could be, but I can feel the pump residual whenever this is not filling up. So that's why I'm thinking that I might have something going on with this fuel filter. I am not completely sure. Or with this fuel line from the tank. Either way, it definitely needs replaced, because look at the condition of it. And like I said, it's the original fuel line, so we're going to take care of it. Long story short, the best way to get this off is to you got to take the knob off, take the gas cap off, take the little knob off here for the height adjustment. A couple of bolts here on the bottom to take off. You take off a lever for the hydrostatic transmission right here, and the whole assembly comes off just like this. And you feed the seat safety switch wire out through here as well, and it all just comes out just like that. So that's what I'm dealing with. I'm going to give this thing a nice clean, take off this fuel line, and see what's going on with it. Alright guys, I got this thing cleaned up, and on the outside here. And I've got it, I'm doing as much as I can with it. I've got it to where maybe it won't make a liar out of me, but it'll start and run on idle again. to run on idle again. One thing I found on this carburetor, I don't know if it made any difference, and I'm sorry I don't have the light, but there was a little pipe that went up there, and it looked like whenever the fuel filter was trying, or the fuel carburetor was trying to flood, it would purge out, and it was dropping right on the exhaust for some reason. So I routed that line out through here down underneath the mower so that it doesn't catch fire. And I'm just doing some crazy stuff here, but I'm gonna put all this back together tomorrow, and I'm gonna give it one big final test. And if I can't if it still acts up after that, I really am at a loss. One thing I have done, I have put the new fuel filter in here, and I have put the new fuel line, and the fuel filter is acting differently, so that's a good thing. The fuel filter is just barely keeping enough gas in it, but it's still pumping it through. So, and it's not surging like a whole lot of fuel, a little fuel, a whole lot of fuel, a little fuel. So we're going to see if that works. Like I said, it's late. I got to go to work in the morning. So we're going to leave it as is tonight. I'm going to pick this back up tomorrow. I will go ahead and get all this back on and test this thing out, and I'll let you know what ends up happening with it. I don't really have a lot of high hopes. Honestly, if this is the last thing, the end of it for us, then I might just count this as a loss and keep on moving. I know that I can relocate the fuel pump to prevent vapor lock, but I want to say that the old fuel line might have had something to do with it. The only thing to do is to put it back together. So I'll do that tomorrow, and I'll catch back up with you then. I did check, and I am getting good spark at the spark plugs, even when the engine is running hot and it has a hard time starting back up. So another thing to knock off the list, so to speak, of things that could be wrong. Anyways, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Alright, so even though after I've got everything back on it with new fuel line and everything, the fuel is pumping good, I got out there, excuse me, made about a pass or two and the thing just quit again. So I know I'm getting good fuel through the pump. There was a little dirt that got in the carburetor from where I did that. One thing that I'm noticing, I've cleaned the jets out and everything on this carburetor yet again, and this bottom jet right here has a hole in it, and I'm thinking that this hole needs to line up with where this anti-backfire solenoid is. I don't know if that's going to make any sort of difference at all, but because I have cut this solenoid because I thought that I had an issue with that, but it's not that. So I did all this on the mower. I'm getting good jet action through all the jets right here that you can see at the top. I'm getting good flow from the bottom jet from what I can tell. And I'm going to put everything back on, and I'm going to see if this thing will run again. Like I said, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do know that it's not really playing ball with me, which really stinks. And we might just have to, I mean, it is a fuel issue. I do know that it is a fuel issue because it's getting spark all the way up to the plug. The plugs are sparking, they're NGKs, and they wouldn't just, it sounds like a fuel issue, it wouldn't just shut completely off. So I'm going to put everything back on, give it another mow, see what we can do, and if this doesn't work out, I really don't know if I'm going to even venture to try and fix this more so that I can go ahead and get to a bunch of the other projects that I have around here. I'm hoping that I can get this right, because I really would like to have somebody to have a good mower and really to get it fixed, because it's in decent shape otherwise. Alright guys, here is what I'm going to call my last ditch effort. Here's what I have done. I have taken a mechanical fuel pump from HiPA parts, actually, that I got for a Kohler tune-up kit for a Kohler Courage that I'm supposed to be doing a tune-up on. It hasn't showed up yet. And a carb swap. But I put that mechanical fuel pump on here, or pulse fuel pump, excuse me. I drilled a hole in the valve cover on the left side here. Routed this tube in, routed it up here for the pulse. Put the inlet fuel line right here, put the outlet fuel line right here, and we're getting a pulse and we're getting fuel, and we're getting some sort of running ability here. And it'll idle too. So, what I'm going to do is take it out, cut with it. It has to cut my entire yard for me to be comfortable with selling it. As you can see, I have mess on the ground here. I thought I was taking a PVC line off. I took a coolant line off, and so it's just, I feel like I'm nice and sticky and icky. But you learn. This has been one of the biggest learning experiences, guys. It really has, and I hope that this has fixed it. I've left the other fuel pump on there. Just, I mean, it's not serving any purpose, so why not just leave it right there for right now, at least. I do know that the thing is full of coolant. It is running with this mechanical fuel pump. I'm going to put the hood on it. I'm just going to drive it until I don't feel like driving anymore. And then we'll see how it holds up. It might, I don't know if it's going to cure vapor lock. If it is vapor locking at all, I did route this thing around the bottom portion of the engine. Hopefully that keeps some of the heat out of it, because most of my heat is not here. It's more so, maybe I can even route it back here a little bit behind the engine. I might do that if this doesn't work, but we're really close. It's just it seems like the common denominator comes back to the fuel pump not pumping fuel out for some reason on this engine. My dad and Rick Broerman suggested this. My dad said to put a mechanical fuel pump on it, tie it into the valve cover for some pulse. He did that on another John Deere with a similar engine, and it worked for him. I hope it works for me. Rick said relocate the fuel pump to get it away from the shrouds and the heat and all that stuff. So the closest thing to the heat source now is the carb inlet, which runs over here near where this radiator fan blows. And then the closest thing that this runs to is the rear of the mower engine. So I'm wondering if that got it. Like I said, let me stop talking. I know this video is getting really, really long, and I'm going to test this thing out. Alright guys, one thing that you can do when you have two of these engines is cross-reference. Is it possible that I have found the problem? I don't know. But here's what I've found. These were the plugs that are in this mower here, the LX279. These are the plugs that are in the LX188. See, these are like a much smaller plug than these. Do you reckon that is causing my issues? I know popping these in is not going to cause any problems because it's really long ways out there, and it's not going to like hit the cylinder or anything. This is crazy. Let's put these in, because I pulled the plugs and they were wet. I've put aluminum tape on this fuel pump here. Like I said, I've got the mechanical fuel pump going just to see how all this mess is working, or this pulse pump. Because I've done everything to the fuel system with no change. Now I check the spark system. Let's see what it does. Will it crank up? Maybe. I need two hands. We'll grab a tripod. We'll get two hands on it. See if it'll start for us. If not, then we know that something's off. Alright guys, back on this thing. I said, I'm done with it. Twice. And I said, you know what? I want to try something. Because after I looked up this, and y'all seen the LX188 in the video, where I've kind of attempted to fix that also. A lot of people said, replace the carburetor, replace the carburetor, replace the carburetor. There's sometimes little specks that get caught in those Macounies from the tank, which the tank is pretty clean, that can cause some issues. So, I did not put it on camera, I know. But I have replaced the carburetor on this. It is relatively easy to do. You have to take these 10 millimeters out, take this PVC hose off. PCV hose, excuse me. These two screws for the, what is that, the shroud? Those two screws for the shroud. Pull it off, and you take these linkages off, and you can get at it and pull it out. The hardest part is getting these linkages back in. Getting them off, you have to be kind of careful. They may try and bend a little bit, but getting them back in is a little bit hard, just because you don't want to bend anything. There's a bunch of residual oil and stuff sitting on the muffler. That's why it's smoking a little bit. However, I have cranked it and I have ran it. And it runs a little, I think it runs slightly rich, but I'm going to put the hood on it, and I'm going to take it out for a spin, and it has to cut my entire yard without failing in order for me to call this good. If it's not this, I don't know what it could be, because I have done everything to this mower at this point. Everything. I've done the entire fuel system. I've even changed the fuel pump setup to a mechanical one, or a pulse fuel pump through the valve cover. Same symptoms. The only variable was the carburetor. That between them all. Obviously, I've left the old fuel pump on. These pulse fuel pumps that keep a lot of the heat away, I have put some aluminum tape over. I mean, I've tried everything, y'all. So what I'm going to do, I've got about a quarter of a tank. I want to put some non-ethanol in it. I want to run it to see if it'll run on its current gas. That tire kind of gets a little low over the course of time. I want to see if it'll run on its current gas. And if so, I'm going to go get a can of non-ethanol, and I'm just going to dump it. Probably put a half a tank in it. And tell whoever buys this thing to run non-ethanol gas. Anyways, let me get to work. Let me get to mowing with this thing. I think we're getting kind of close to time to be cutting some grass again in this yard. So I'm going to try it, see what happens. Alright guys, still here. I have ran it, drove it. I did have an instance where it felt like it was going to try and cut off. It lost a lot of power, but it would still stay running. Full of coolant. Oil is, we'll check the oil one more time, but I think it's good. It's not, I don't think it's smelling like gas or anything. I mean, it's nothing crazy if it is. Seems like it's running a little rich, but it was running lean. I checked the plugs. The plugs, they're on the back. I'll show you what the plugs were in it. I've already been through this, but I showed y'all that the plugs that were in this 188 were smaller than these. But you can see that they were not burning crazy, because I did have one that was kind of black. And this one was burning, both of them were actually burning pretty decent. You see one cylinder was a little bit leaner than the other, but nothing crazy. I got it to run, I don't know, cut for about 15 minutes or so. Just a minute, or just a little bit ago. The engine has cooled off since. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the valve covers off and attempt to, well, we're going to adjust the valves on it. I think they're supposed to be to 6/1000ths from what I saw. You can see we've got a couple of oil leaks around somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but like I said, I'm going to adjust the valves, see what we've got, and then I can do it before it gets dark and I don't have to get stopped by the rain. I want to take it over the entire yard. It must cut my entire yard before I relinquish this thing. So let me grab the jack. I want to jack up the front so that the oil kind of pulls toward the rear of the engine so that it's not dripping out on the muffler and stuff. Alright guys, hopefully the light is good enough to see this here. But I already took one side off the valve cover. We're going to work on this valve cluster now. Everything looks good. Like I said, I'm getting good spark, good fuel it looks like. If anything, it's running maybe just a tiny bit lean. But then it just kind of it's like it just starts dying out, almost like it's losing compression or something. Like I said, there are a couple oil leaks. Anyways, nothing like substantial though. So your situation with this is they're a little bit different than the Briggs. They're just as easy to adjust though. You've got feeler gauge. I'm adjusting them to about 6/1000ths. I am going even as low as like 4/1000ths here. And these things are pushing like 10, and that's an 8/1000ths feeler right there. So I know that we need to come in some. I saw 6/1000ths. I will double check to see. I would think that that's usually about the standard for all of them. But you take a 9mm wrench, undo that nut, turn this little square head in, which it should move if we give it enough, loosen it enough here. There we go. We'll turn that in a little bit, see where we're at. Could it be that this was what makes the difference? So I can barely fit the 8 in there. The 6, I'm sorry for the shakiness. The 6, we can kind of get in there. And let me get the 5 out real quick here. I'm aiming for like between 4 and 6/1000ths just to get everything tight. So the 5 fits in there pretty snug too. You also want to feel to make sure that your rocker arm is moving there for the valve. And so this valve, or this valve here, it tightens back up whenever you tighten up the nut. So I've done that one. I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. I don't remember which one's the intake and which one's the exhaust here, because it's the first ever one I've worked on. But I'll double check the clearances as well, and then we'll crank it up, because we're getting very close. Whatever we're doing is allowing us to make some progress on this. So it's better than no progress. I have some time. I'll probably be able to mow before it gets dark to see if it'll cut the whole yard. Guys, I have run this thing continuously for about a half hour now. Throttle's up, throttle's down, blades turn on. It's even got a little rumble to it. And it'll burn your eyes because of fumes. Woo! All right. So that's that. I'm not going to list it for sale yet because it is a little bit cooler this evening. However, the humidity is up. So that could induce water intrusion and stuff like that. So I think we're in much better shape than we were. I know that, with the carburetor and with the valve adjustment. Those by far have been the two biggest things that I have done to this mower. I cut my front yard with it before before some storms came in. I cut the back half of it, and then I cut the front half of it near the road. Then I came and cut this section of the yard and that section of the yard, and didn't have any trouble whatsoever. So and it'll crank right back up on idle, running smoother now that I adjusted the valves too. It'll throttle up. Blades. Turn it off. So, I think I'm not going to say we've cracked the code yet. What I'm going to do, let it sit for a couple days, let the grass grow a little bit. I'm going to go out here and just run it a little bit, run it across the yard one more time. If it makes it across the yard one more time, I'm going to call it good. But what I will do, because beyond this, I don't think I'm going to put a $100 and some odd spark whatever on it. What igniters? There's always been spark. It's always been a fuel issue and a fuel delivery issue to the plugs. One other thing that I did do is I traded out those plugs that y'all saw in the last clip for the plugs that were on the LX188. And those plugs are much shallower than those other NGKs in there that are a little bit deeper. So maybe that had something to do with it too. I'm not sure, because when I did swap those plugs out, it hasn't run poorly since. So I'm wondering if those plugs were starting to get kind of old and fouled, but they were burning good, so I don't know. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Y'all have been with me for a really, really long time on this video, so we'll get a conclusion here on this LX279, because I think we're at the end of what we're going to do. Alright guys, so we are going to end this saga, so to speak, on the channel. Y'all saw me get it ready originally. I put a ton of money and a ton of work into this, and I didn't want to see my work go wasted, to be honest with you. I listed it a couple of times, one time for $400, one time for $300, saying that it will run for 10 minutes and then cut off. And then I started doing some research, and I saw that these are notorious for having carb issues, and notorious for the symptoms that they were displaying on me with the problem with it running and then just kind of shutting off. A lot of people have issues with those igniters and the ignition coils. I've always had spark. And the issue with the fuel seemed to have been persistent. I think we had a bunch of issues going on. I think we had a vapor lock issue going on. I think we also had a fuel pump issue going on, and I think we also had a carb issue. Now that I've sorted out all three of them, maybe, but either way, we'll end this video here, hopefully for kind of as a research purpose for a lot of people who may still have these hanging around, because there's quite a few of them out there from what I can tell. So what did we do? We did brand new fuel lines, converted to a pulse style fuel pump instead of the mechanical fuel pump. We also swapped out the spark plugs, swapped out the carburetor, and I don't even know what else at this point, but it looks like the carburetor and the valve adjustment were the two things that really The carburetor, valve adjustment, and swapping the spark plugs were the three things that really made the difference on this mower. So, like I said, before I sell it, I'm going to ride it across the yard one more time. It's got to cut the entire yard before we get it finished. But, in the meantime, I appreciate y'all watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the process, although it was a very long process. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me, Ellis at ellismowers.com, or at ellismowers09 on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll catch y'all on the next video. Thanks for the ride, and I'll see you then.